Hello everyone, my name is Asyrafchazz and welcome back to yet another One Piece card game video. So OP-02 is going to be releasing for the English side of things real soon, so I'm going to try and make some videos to help players transition from the OP-01 metagame to the OP-02 metagame by giving you guys information on what happened over here in the Japanese side of things. Now things might be different versus East and West, but these are general guidelines of the leaders, the staples, and also deck lists that I'll be making in the next series of videos after I put out this one, in hopes that it will help some players transition to the next metagame. Now OP-02 is very fun and you have a lot of leaders to choose from, but some leaders are definitely better than others. So in this video we're going to rank every single leader from all the starter decks all the way to the end of OP-02, and I'm going to give you some insights on what leaders can carry you forward into OP-03 as well. So I hope you guys find this extremely useful. Also in the next video we're going to talk about staples in each color so that you don't necessarily have to buy out every single booster box out there. You can just buy out these specific singles and it will carry you forward for the OP-02 metagame. I hope you guys find this useful, but if you do, please consider giving a like and subscribing if you want to keep up to date with more One Piece card game content. Thank you so much for helping the channel reach 9,000 subscribers. We're over 9,000 and hopefully we can get to 10k subscribers soon. But now without further ado, let's talk about all the leaders from OP-01 and OP-02 and all the starter decks and see which ones you should play. Alright, so we got good old tier maker here. We're going to make a tier list of all the leaders. Before I start talking about the leaders and the tier list, I want to make one thing really clear for every single one of you guys watching this video. If there is a character that you really like, for example, if you like Sanji, if you like Magellan, if you like Z, feel free to use the leader that you love. Don't let this tier list dictate what you play. Play what you love and you play better. That's what I always think. Take this tier list as a general guide on how you can expect the next metagame to be like, but play what you love, honestly. But let's start with the first leader, which is coincidentally my favorite and the one that I played in the OP-02 metagame, which is starter deck Luffy. Now Luffy is an extremely decent leader. It is I would say a generic effect that helps you proceed with your game plan, and with the addition of the next few OP-02 cards, you definitely have more options to play with. But with Luffy, you can kind of cater the deck or the leader and the deck that it plays to the metagame. So for example, if it's Whitebeard heavy, you can kind of go all in on the can't be blocked stuff because, you know, Whitebeard gets to 0 life and then you just swing for the game with an unblockable attacker, be it with Diable Jambe or like the 5-cost Rush Luffy that can't be blocked. So Luffy can definitely put his own against every single deck in the metagame, but it does fall short on some of the heavier control-y decks, such as decks playing black. And what I found is that this deck doesn't really do very well against Smoker. Of course, you can kind of play the big red, you know, with the 7-cost vanillas, even like including Shanks and Whitebeard in the deck to kind of make it really big and beefy so that, you know, Smoker decks have a hard time dealing with it. But I think Luffy is definitely going to be at a B tier. I would put it at a high B tier depending on the player itself. But generally, Luffy's power level would just be at B. It's good across the board. You can play it if you want to. There are, I would say, better red deck options out there. But Luffy is decent enough, so I'm going to put it at B. Alright, next up, Eustace Kid. Now, Eustace Kid actually won one of the regional tournaments in Japan in, I believe, Fukuoka. It was the first place deck versus Kinemon, so you can actually watch the match itself to kind of learn the ins and outs of using Eustace Kid in the new metagame. 8-cost Kid is still going to be good. Eustace Kid's leader ability is still going to be good. However, because I'm also going to talk about the future, which is OP-03, it's not going to be really good in OP-03 because of the ace decks running around. There's just a lot of removal in the format right now. But in OP-02, Eustace Kid is really good and I'm going to put it at a B+. I'm not going to put it at A because I do think that just by a short margin, Kinemon decks are better. You can play like similar packages in both decks. You can use Eustace Kid as a leader, you can use Kinemon as a leader. However, Kinemon can potentially get a stronger and faster start, so I'm gonna put Kinemon just slightly higher, so I'm gonna put Eustace Kid at B+. Alright, next up is Crocodile. Crocodile is a decent leader, it's a great effect, and there are some lists that uses the whole Ivankov package with the Impel Down cards with Crocodile as a leader, so you can go that way if you want to. By the way, if you don't know any of the cards effects, I have a playlist titled OP-02 where I talk about all the different cards, so you can go and watch it, talk about the leaders, I talk about the cards effect. But for Crocodile, I think it's safely at C. Now, the only reason why I'm not putting it at B is because it didn't really have a lot of popular showings across tournaments across the board, in Japan, in Singapore, etc. It depends on whether the person really loves playing Crocodile, and then you can definitely win games with it. However, due to the lack of tournament placing results, I'm going to put it at C because there are better blue decks in the form of Ivankov that really make waves in the OP-02 metagame. So even though Crocodile is definitely a decent deck to play, it just falls short of some tournament winnings, which is why I'm putting it at C. Alright, next up is Kaido. Now, Kaido does get some tools to make it better. It does have a searcher, even though it's an impel down searcher in the form of Hannibal, and it does use that package. It did see a lot of top 8 results, especially later on in the format. So I'm going to put it at a B+. I think Kaido can still stand a very good chance against some of the decks out there. Some of the top ends, like the 9-cost Kaido, the 10-cost Kaido can definitely win you some games. King is still relevant in this meta game. So it's going to be a good deck for sure, a good leader to use. You might have some trouble fighting against Whitebeard decks and also Smoker decks because both of the decks want to go like mid-rangey or big, and Kaido has to kind of find a way to deal with that. Also, with Marco the Phoenix being like one of the most annoying blockers to deal with, your on KO effects may not work the first time you use it because Marco is on KO. You can discard a Whitebeard card from your hand and bring it back to play rested. So you always have to find a way to deal with Marco. So that's also another thing to consider. But Kaido, decent enough, great leader. I think it's a B+. Now, the new film starter deck, ST05, I believe just came out in English. Shanks did see some play for a little bit because some Japanese players were sharing some deck lists about Shanks. However, it didn't really make any impact anyway, so it's going to be the first leader that I'm going to put at D tier. I just feel like Film Shanks doesn't have a lot going for it. Yes, it does have a searcher. Yes, you have a game plan. Douglas Bullet is really strong. The Uta blocker is really strong. But Shanks as a leader just falls a bit short because you're not sure. You want to play controller, you want to be aggressive with Shanks. Need a strategy, have enough support, I think. So Shanks, I'm going to put it at D. I'm sorry for all the Shanks lovers out there. This leader did not see a lot of play in the OP-02 metagame if you're in Japan side. So next is the demo deck leader, Uta. I'm just going to put it at D because even though it's fun, because you're going to play all the vanillas out there, it just has a leader effect that isn't super impactful, and people can definitely run away with games if they see like you're playing Uta. There's just better leaders out there, and Uta, play it if you love Uta as a leader. If not, it's a D tier. Alright, now we're going to go into the OP-01 leaders. Now the OP-01 leaders have benefits from OP-02 because you get access to a larger card pool. The biggest winner from OP-01 leaders is 100% Zoro. I'm gonna put it straight at A tier. In the early days of the metagame, Zoro was number 1. Zoro was so powerful because it uses a lot of the new 1-cost cards, which we'll talk about in the staples video, like Makino, the Magra, as well as Curly Daden to search out, your Namis, your Otamas, your Magras. Also, benefits from having Vista, which is definitely a staple, which is an on-play KO, something that's 3000 power less. You can combo it with an Otama. You can combo it with even like my favorite card, Round Table. Also, Zoro benefits from having Whitebeard in the deck. So at the start, you're playing all these 1-cost small characters. You're attacking your opponent, being very aggressive, and then you drop Whitebeard down and then you try to go for game that way. Zoro is definitely strong, and Zoro's rise to prominence in the early days of the metagame in Japan side led to the rise of another deck, which we'll talk about later on. So I'm going to put it at A. It's definitely going to be really good in the OP-02 format. It's better than the 2-cost vanilla ones that you guys might be used to playing. Play the 1-cost version. It's super great. Next is Red Green Law. I think Red Green Law is also really strong. It did win the Miyagi tournament over in Japan. The regional tournament, it won first place, and it also won second place in the regional tournament in Tokyo. So Red Green Law definitely really strong because you have more access to more card pools. You got Vista, you got Curly the Den to search out all your one cost cards. I would not put it at A because it definitely depends on the skill level of the player. Not everyone can pick up Red Green Law and win tournaments with it. It does take a really strong pilot. It's definitely a high B plus, I would say, closer to A. So depending on the skill of the pilot, it's an A, but for everyone else, it's probably going to be a B plus. You're still going to do really good with it. Red Green Law is definitely a deck that will continually get better and better for every single set that releases because you get access to a wider card pool every single set, and every single set will probably have like one cost, two cards, character cards that you can definitely. So Red Green Law, I'm going to put it at B plus. It could easily be A, so it depends on you. Next is Red Green Luffy. Now Red Green Luffy has an interesting deck because you have the access to all the green film package straw hat cards like Nami, like the 7-cost Luffy blocker, like Brook. And if you can use Nami's ability multiple times with Luffy's ability, the Red Green Luffy's ability, then you actually can get something with it. It didn't win a lot of tournaments. It did see play for sure. I've seen a couple of Red Green Luffy lists out there. I don't think it deserves to be at B because then I will put it at the same level as the Straw Hat Luffy, the ST01. So I'm going to put it at C tier, though it does share a similar card pool like Red Green Law. Red Green Law's effect is just much stronger. I think Luffy would definitely be a deck that will be interesting to play. You can try it out if you want with all the film stuff, and you can definitely win tournaments with it. But because of the lack of tournament winning results in the Japan side of things, I think it's safely at C tier. Next is Kozuki Oden. Now Oden is one of the, I would say, leaders that I wish could have been better. Like I wish Oden had Kinemon's effect and Kinemon had Oden's effect, something like that. So I'm going to put it at D. It really didn't see a lot of tournament plays at all. If you love Oden, play Oden. If you want to play something like Oden, play Kinemon. That's the best way I can put it. So I think it deserves to be at D. It's just not an impactful effect. I did see some people playing Oden in the meta games of the locals that I've been to. However, it's just not as impactful as Kinemon, so it's gonna be a D. Doflamingo is a very interesting leader because Doflamingo plays by its own rules. It just didn't have a lot of additional cards coming to OP-02 that may help Doflamingo. Some cards yes, some cards no. However, I know how popular Doflamingo is at the for the English side of things because it won several tournaments. It went really well. Also, the alternate leader is just amazing. So Doflamingo, I'm gonna put it at B. Just because of the lack of tournament results as like the other leaders out there. Doflamingo can definitely win games, can definitely win regionals, locals, whatever. However, just because of the lack of support from OP-02 with its own strategy and at the same time the lack of tournament winning results, I'm gonna put it at B. I think it's a better deck than Crocodile. I think it's a better deck than Red Green Luffy. It's definitely gonna be really impactful when you can get your Doflamingo things going. And people are going to have a hard time playing against Doflamingo as usual, but there's just a lot of removal out there. People are playing things even faster with Ivankov, and you have to deal with black decks that will definitely shut down your strategy pretty easily. So Doflamingo is at B. I think that's a pretty good choice for it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the next three leaders, which is Blue Purple Crocodile, Blue Purple Kaido, and King. I will be the first to tell you that in my 3 months of playing OP-02, I have not played or seen any Blue Purple Crocodile or Blue Purple Kaido. I know Blue Purple Crocodile and Kaido are really popular decks or leaders in the English metagame. However, it just isn't that great. You can make it work. You can ignore this tier list if you want to and just play that deck if you love it. 100%. That's okay, but because of the other decks that just are doing way better things at a much faster rate, I'm gonna put these leaders at D. King, you can play King if you want to, but I would put it at D because it just has zero impact on the board. It just has, I mean, it can when you have your 10 Dawn or whatever, but it just has zero impact in tournaments overall. And there are better purple leaders like Kaido, also Z, and somewhat Magellan as well. You can easily put Blue Purple Crocodile and Blue Purple Kaido at C tier, which I think, looking at this list right now in the current iteration, could be possible, but I'm just telling you how I saw it during the Japanese side of things. It just wasn't as impactful as a lot of people think it was going to be. So I'm going to put it at D. I do apologize to all the blue, purple, crocodile, and Kaido lovers out there. You can prove me wrong by playing the deck and winning your regionals or your big tournaments with it. I do think that there are better decks out there, especially when you're going for the more controlling route, which we'll talk about later on. Alright, next up is the ST06 leader, Sakazuki Akainu. This is the first black leader that we had in the game. Unfortunately, it is the, I would say, the worst black leader that we have so far. Its effect was great for the time that the starter deck was released, but when the set came out, there were just a lot more efficient ways to reduce costs of cards and at the same time KOing stuff like Sakazuki. Sakazuki, the character card, is a great example of that. Like, you rarely use the leader's ability, so this is definitely going to be a D. Try it out if you want to. I just think Smoker is the better option compared to Sakazuki. It's just not that good overall in the metagame. Alright, now we're going to go into the big daddy of the set. It's none other than Whitebeard. Whitebeard is definitely one of the strongest decks, and this is the reason why I said, like, because Zoro rose to prominence in the early days of the metagame, it led to people playing Whitebeard. Because Zoro, with all the small one-cost characters, he will pump it up to like 5k or 6k, usually just 5,000, and it's easy to attack into opposing 5,000 leaders. However, Whitebeard has 6,000 power, so it makes the matchup against Zoro much easier. You can survive a lot of hits, and Zoro has a very difficult time to deal with Whitebeard's onslaught of like the big beefy creatures. Once Moby Dick is out, once you're down to that 1-0 life count, you have your Marco the Phoenix, you have Ace, you have the big Whitebeard, you have, you know, maybe the vanillas like King Dew, and also Vistas, and you're just swinging for like what, 5k, 7k, 9k, and Zoro has a hard time dealing with that. Zoro is still going to be A because it's still going to be a popular deck. Whitebeard decks should expect Zoro to come out, and then you can play Whitebeard to kind of counter them. But because you play Whitebeard, someone else is going to counter you later on, which we'll talk about later. Whitebeard is definitely going to be A tier. This is the deck that you have to beat in OP-02. And not only that, this is the deck that you have to beat in OP-03. Because right now in the Japanese metagame, we've seen the latest tournament, Whitebeard is insanely strong. And it's because of two cards. One is Izo, which is the Whitebeard searcher, the Whitebeard dedicated searcher on the character. And secondly, it's the new Marco the Phoenix character card that is literally Vista on crack. So if you play Whitebeard in the OP-02 set, yes, you do have to get a lot of Whitebeard pieces from the OP-02 release, but you are future-proofing yourself for the next set. If you are a Whitebeard main, you will be good for 2 sets. So that's the great reason why you should play Whitebeard. However, you have to kind of really learn the matchup. I highly recommend you guys watching the Blackbeard TCGs video on Whitebeard. I'm going to make a Whitebeard video on my own just to kind of talk about the matchups that you can potentially face with Whitebeard and how to properly deal with them, and also what you should be expect as a Whitebeard player for people playing against you, because like I built my deck to counter Whitebeard in my own metagame. So Whitebeard, it's at A. I think it's great. It's gonna be the new boogeyman of the format, so be prepared to face a lot of Whitebeards. GEEK is one of those leaders that I was so disappointed by. I thought it was gonna be good, but I don't think it really was as impactful. Once again, not a lot of tournament or top 8s or not a lot of tournament winnings with Black Red Garb. You can definitely do well with Garb because it uses a lot of the black pieces and it uses a lot of the good red pieces as well. However, it's just a little bit too slow. You might as well just play a mono black version because you're trying to do black things with the Sakazukis, with the Kuzans and the secret rare Kuzans, but you're just bogged down by the lack of 5 life, at the same time your access to red. So I'm gonna put it at C tier because I did see some people playing the leader. Actually, it should be at D because it didn't really see a lot of play, but I did see a few lists in Japan floating around. People were trying out Black Red Garb. Yes, I'm putting it higher than Crocodile and Blue Purple Kaido. It might be different in the West. It might be different for the English release, so take it with a grain of salt. All right, next up is the other A tier deck, which is none other than Kinemon. Kinemon 100% is going to be at A. It is just one of the most consistent decks in the format because of its ability to kind of discount your, Wano country cards. You can play an Okiku on your 2-don turn. You can play a Secret Rare Yamato when you have only 4 dons, so it's really good. You can play Momonosuke for free essentially, and also the new 8-cost Odin can be discounted by 1 with Kinemon's ability as well. So Kinemon is definitely A. It didn't win first place in any major tournaments, but it is the deck that consistently ends up being top 8. Kinemon, very consistent. You do have to work a little bit harder to get that win when it comes to Kinemon, but it's a great deck. It's a consistent deck. It belongs at A. Alright, next up is Blue-Green Sanji. Now, Blue-Green Sanji is pretty interesting. I did see one person playing it. I did have Mr. K, Mr. Kansume, played it quite heavily as well in the OP-02 metagame. I think that Sanji falls in the same category as Red Green Luffy and Garp, in a sense that it didn't really put up a lot of tournament results, but you can still play it if you want to, if you really love this character. So I'm going to put it at C because you can catch a lot of people off guard with your onslaught of vanillas. That 6 costs 8,000 vanilla Mihawk is really good in Sanji, and people will have a hard time dealing with an 8,000 powered character. However, it really sucks against black decks, which is going to be the other boogeyman of the format. I think that Sanji is a decent deck. I think C is okay. You could put it at B, but based on like results and winnings and everything else, I'm gonna put it at C tier. Alright, next up is Ivankov, and Ivankov actually won the Aichi tournament over in Japan, the Aichi regional tournament. However, Ivankov is sort of like a deck that kind of falls to black. Has a tough time dealing with Whitebeard decks as well, and has about like 50-50 against Kinemon depending on your draws. It's good against decks like Zoro who want to kind of, and Red Green Law for example, who wants to swarm the board. Your stuff will naturally be bigger because Luffy, Ivankov, they're all, and the 5-cost vanilla Crocodile, they're all at a 7,000 power stat line. And it's gonna be your big body wall against the decks with like smaller characters. So Ivankov is really good. I'm kind of considering putting it at B+, because it's really quite popular. It did get a few top 8s in a few tournaments, so I'm going to put it at B+. It could easily be at B. I don't think it's an A tier deck just because of the lack of wins as compared to like the ones that are currently in A tier. Ivankov is an extremely fun deck to play. I do have a deck list talking about it as well, and there's different variants of this deck. You can play more event heavy, or you can go like eventless. It's either way, I think you're gonna have a fun time playing Ivankov. So if you're a Doflamingo player that wants to kind of bring in the OP-02 spice, I would definitely recommend playing Ivankov, and it's good. It's a great deck. Alright, next up is Magellan. Now Magellan's a bit tricky because people do play it sometimes, but Kaido is a better purple leader, and Magellan, even though his ability is kind of interesting and you do have support for it in form of the purple impel down cards, it just lacks that oomph to kind of put it into the next level. So I'm also going to put it at C. You can see decent results with Magellan. It's definitely going to be a decent leader for sure, and you have the package to kind of use in OP-02 to kind of make this deck work. You can play the Kaidos, you can play the 4-cost blocker Uta as well in the deck depending on the version that you're trying to build. However, as a late game finisher, Kaido is just a better leader, which is why I would recommend playing Kaido instead, but you can definitely give Magellan a try. However, I do think that it's safely at C. Now, Black Purple Zephyr or Z is a very, very interesting deck, and surprisingly it did see quite a bit of play, especially in the later half of the metagame when people were trying to experiment with more multicolored leaders. It actually has a decent chance against like any other deck in the format, and you have access to like powerful purple cards as well as the powerful black cards, and his own leader ability is just really, really powerful. I'm gonna put it at B because it did see quite a little bit of play It did see some decent results over in Japan, over in Singapore as well. People were trying it after it made like I believe it's like an top 8 appearance in one of the regional tournaments in Japan, and then it started to pick up in popularity. So I think Z is a decent pick for B tier. If you're planning to play a purple based multicolored leader like Crocodile or Kaido, I would recommend you to try out Zephyr instead, because then you have access to the strong black cards, and you may find it to be a much more enjoyable leader in this upcoming metagame. And now we are at our last leader. If you're watched this far, thank you so much for watching it, because it's like almost 30 minutes. It's Smoker. Smoker is easily at A. I think this is the current one of the boogeymans of the format, especially in the later half of the format. I think Smoker is just really strong. It's consistently strong. Not a lot of bad matchups overall. It has tools to deal with the character heavy decks. It has a decent matchup against like Kinemon, Zoro, Ivankov. Well, against Whitebeard, you have to kind of fight for it, but you can still win games with it if you can get rid of the Marco the Phoenix and try to swing high for game. Once you drop that 10 core super rare Kuzan, which unfortunately you do need a playset of, then you're kind of golden. This is what Black wants to do. It just wants to play all these powerful Black super rares and secret rares and then win the game from there. If you are planning to play Smoker in the upcoming metagame, you have to kind of understand that this is a deck you are probably going to be building from scratch. You do need to get the starter deck, the Sakazuki starter deck for Impact Wave, because that's a really good counter event card. It's going to be an expensive deck. If you don't have boxes lined up or cases that you have bought, it is going to be an expensive deck because the super rares are going to be kind of expensive, and of course the secret rare Kuzan is a staple. It's not just like, oh, I can play like 2 or 3 of it. No, play the full 4. You definitely want to see 1 or 2 of it in your game. So I would recommend you playing the full playset. But it is a deck that will definitely get better in OP-03, because right now in OP-03, it's kind of evolving from a Smoker deck to a Rob Lucci deck, but certain pieces from the Smoker deck has been used, like Sakazuki. Kizaru is a very, very strong and annoying blocker to deal with as well. So Smoker is definitely a good pick to play in the next metagame in OP-02, and it will kind of future-proof your deck as well for OP-03. So this is kind of where I'm settling at for the tier list. Yes, you may disagree with the choices. Yes, you can play whatever you want. You don't have to take my word for this. This is just how it broke down in the Japanese side of things, as when we take a look at tournament results overall, placings, top 8 placings. And you can definitely see the matches in the official One Piece card game YouTube channel, where they actually have the live tournaments for OP-02. There's like 5 different OP-02 regional events that you can watch and learn and study from, and you can see a lot of these decks make their way into the metagame. And yeah, try what you want. Yes, there may be some leaders that belong in like B, like for example Ivankov, it can easily be at B. However, I put it at B plus just because it's a popular deck as well. Luffy can easily be at A as well, or B plus even, but because, you know, it depends on the style and the kind of build that you want. So there you go. This is just a kind of semi breakdown of the leaders that you should expect in the OP-02 metagame. The number 1 leader that you should have a game plan for at every single tournament is Whitebeard. That's a matchup that you have to consistently practice, because it's going to be very difficult to deal with if you don't know how to deal with Whitebeard. Once you know what Whitebeard wants to do, how to beat Whitebeard, it gets a little bit easier, but it's still going to be tough. Zoro is Zoro. Stave off the aggression, you should be fine. And then Kinemon and Smoker both are kind of like mid-rangey balanced matchups, whether or not you win or lose depending on how well you play your game. And there you go. So I want to end off this tier list by telling you the same thing that I said at the start of this tier list, which is play the character or the leader that you love and you will play better. Don't take this tier list as kind of gospel or whatever. This tier list is just a general guide on what decks you should be expecting, what made impact in the Japanese side of things for the metagame. But at the end of the day, if you love Blue Purple Crocodile, Rock Blue Purple Crocodile, play it at your locals. If you like Sakazuki as a leader, play Sakazuki as your leader in your locals. If you like King, don't kid yourself, play Kaido. Anyway, if you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's a long one, but I really wanted to talk about the impact these decks made in the, or these leaders made in the Japanese side of things, and explain a little bit of what each deck does. Of course, if I want to go into like full detail and show you deck lists, it's gonna be like a really long video. However, I hope this should suffice and you know, kind of give you an insight on what to expect in OP-02. It might be completely different at the end of the season, because OP-01 in English was a little bit different than OP-01 in Japanese. You might have Doflamingo decks or Sanji decks that top in OP-02 for English, which is really good. However, this is just a general guide for you, and I hope someone finds this useful in the future when they're trying to prepare for OP-02. Anyway, in the next video, I'm going to talk about staple cards in each color so that you don't have to kind of break your bank and just buy these staples, or just buy the commons or commons rare and super rares for each color, for the color that you love. That would be the best way to go about it. But I'm going to tell you about specific cards that made an impact in the format and what cards you should be looking out for in the next video. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.